Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. This may be the first video of 2024. I'm filming it in 2023. But thank you all for tuning in to join me as I explore the amazing, incredible, interesting wide world of pens. And yes, I got a new pen delivered recently, in the last couple of days. And yes, it's a Majohn. It's in a nice plastic bin. And it pops open. We have a full instruction manual that covers a whole diverse way of filling a pen. And it's also nice that they give you some warnings and cautions. Here's the pen. So yes, I like pocket pens. Yes, I like small pens. And yes, I enjoy taking this fountain pen form to its small versions, and they give you an eyedropper, which we've seen a few years ago with Moon Man, now Majohn. Nice rubber at the end. And here's the pen. I got it particularly because of this ribbon stripe design. You know, the clear acrylic is a translucent blue. You know, a full-size clip considering the size of the pen, and considering Majohn has been known for using smaller clips on some of their larger pens. The cap comes off in a little over one turn. We'll just see a typical number 5 steel nib. I think this is fine. Your classic plastic feed. I've been playing with the pen, so a little bit out of alignment, but it's not critical. And it is a small pen, make no mistake about that. It's a pretty much unusable. It's like those little golf pens that we may have used playing miniature golf. But, as we would expect from the shape, the cap posts securely. It doesn't really add much of a weight. This pen is about the lightest pen I've had in recent memory. And it is barely long enough posted. Barely, I say. So that's the thing. So let's look at some other pens which I put into this same family. And we'll figure out what kind of ink we're going to fill it up with. Stay tuned. I have to give Mr. Scorpion some work to do, since he's the new member of my pen family. And yes, this is a perfect pen for him to hold up, since he's best with smaller pens, and this is definitely a smaller pen. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can appreciate some of the nuances of this resin the pen is made from. A classic design that's been around for a while. Smog was what Pen BBS called theirs, which was many, many years ago. You know, so we get to see Mr. Scorpion up close too. Interesting combination, Scorpion and pen. So here are some pens we're going to compare the Q2 to. This is the Majohn Wancai, which I think started this whole small pen group. And then Pen BBS came out with their 471, put a number 6 nib on it, and gave you this metal ring. And then Moon Man Majohn reinvented the Wancai in a solid resin, which I found to be very interesting. Never used it on any other pen. And I have 2 of these, one thanks to Dean. Let's look at them in their usable position, which is posted. So here they are posted, and the Q2 is the smallest of this group by a good amount. And these all are number 5 nibs, except for the Pen BBS one, which has a nice number 6 nib, which they're known for. They did make a few versions of a Jinhao pen that had a number 5 marshmallow pen. And you can see this is also the longest pen, but this posts on many different ways, so if you remove this ring, it'll be the same length as the Wancai's. Let's look at the section and nib while we're at it. You can see how they changed the design of the nib from the original one on the Wancai, which was many, many years ago. Of course, this is a medium Pen BBS nib. This section is definitely the smallest section, These sections are, I'd say, more regular size that you might be used to. It's just like a millimeter in diameter, smaller both at the small side and the large size. And also the distance from here to here. Here's one thing to keep in mind. Both the Wancai, which I had inked up in use for many, many years in my pocket, bag, traveled around with me, never once burped, never once started to not write. So great everyday carry pocket pen. And this version of the Wancai, just with a different resin, also is that way. And this one's been inked up for well over a year. And every time I take the cap off, the minute the nib hits paper, it writes. Amazing design that has withstood the test of time. Well, here's my second comparison with the Q2 here. And how could we forget the Q1? I have a whole bunch of these. We'll look at one other one. But look, this clip is shorter than the clip on the Q2. That's unbelievable. And of course, for reference is a Kaweco Sport. Again, some people seem to feel that everybody copies it, but I don't see the Q2 as being a copy, nor the Q1, but it's a pocket pen is a pocket pen. There's only so much design changes you can make. And for reference is a Pilot Metropolitan. You can see the length here to put these in perspective, but also this is a much thinner pen, thin like the Kaweco Sport. I never got into the sports. I have two of them. They just never turned me on. Unlike the Moonman Wancai, which has definitely been one of my favorite pocket pens of all time. I decided I wanted a Noodler's purple ink in the Q2. So these are the two I have in my collection. Purple Heart, which was originally a Goulet exclusive. And I did buy this one from Goulet. I went on the website and did some test writing. Here's an example. But the Purple Heart won out. The primary reason was it's eel ink lubricated, and I think it'll work well in the Wancai Q2. We will fill it as an eyedropper. So, this extra fine steel nib writes well. It writes great as an extra fine nib. Lays down a good line, and it's definitely an extra fine line. Noodler's Purple Heart works good, looks good, dries pretty quick. So, writing with this pen is not the best because of the size. At least that's my opinion. I've used it for a little bit now, and it's a challenge. It's definitely the smallest pen that I have in my collection to write with that is currently inked. And when I filled it up with the Noodler's ink, it took about 5 minutes before the ink started flowing out of the nib. Yeah, I had it nibbed down. Yeah, I was doing my usual dunk, 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 dunk to get it started, but once it got started, it was a good flow. I expect it to be a consistent writer like the other Majohn pocket pens that are of similar design. So there's not much to disassemble in the Q2, but what I wanted to point out is something I read in the description of the pen is that it takes cartridges. The Gin House standard, you can see that opening, and as you can see it fits nice and snug at the end of the nib assembly, but the question is, will it fit into the section? Nice O-ring there for your eyedroppering. You can see there's a little ball left in there. And the question is, yes, it fits very nicely there. So they've designed this to use cartridges for those people that don't want to eyedropper their pens. That is one option. I just thought I'd show you how this section and cap fit together. As you can see, there's very little clearance there between the end of the nib and that cap. But I'm assuming because of that small area that the nib will sit in, it'll stay wet for a long time. Let's look inside the cap. As we've darkened the room a bit, it is daytime. But as we play the LED on that resin, hopefully you get to see the dimension that the ribbon makes. If we look inside, we'll see a screw there at the very top. Hopefully it's a stainless steel screw. It kind of looks that way, but it could be chrome-plated steel. Some of the older Chinese pens had issues with that screw rusting. I collected a bunch of different screws. You can see how they threaded that finial at the top of the cap to accommodate the threads of the screw. I just enjoy the LED on the resin. So I put a cartridge into the Q2, and as you can see, this barrel length was specifically designed to work with these short cartridges. It fits perfectly in there, and if you tighten down the barrel, it will push the cartridge into it and open it up if you don't want to do that by just pushing it on yourself. Kudos to Moonman for that design, because a lot of people like using cartridges. I see something unique and different. They've now used two O-rings, one here above the threads, which I think is the best place for it because you don't want ink in the threads. But then they have a second O-ring down here below the thread, so that's going to give you a double seal. I'm going to put some silicone grease on those when I reassemble before I ink. Great idea, great engineering. Kudos to Majohn. So, comparing the Q1 and Q2, yes, I inked up the Q2, eyedroppered it. They just couldn't be any more different style and design between two pens that have some similarities, but many, many differences. So this Q1 has been inked for a long, long time. And yes, there's a little bit of ink that worked itself into some threads. Easy to clean out. I'm not concerned about that. I haven't done any cleaning on this pen since I first inked it. And it generally writes pretty good. Not as consistent as the Wancais do, but good. But, dude, these two pens are just... the size difference alone is just hilarious. Hopefully you find that true also. So I promised you another version of the Q1. Here it is in a green acrylic. Nice design. I did a lot of Q1 videos, so they're in my pocket pen and other playlists. So there is a green version. Here it is. I don't think the acrylic is as nice as what's in this Q2, but just for your viewing enjoyment, two versions of the pen. And I did rinse some water in here, got the ink out of those threads, but there's still some ink up here. Generally, I could unscrew this finial at the top of the cap, but nah, I did as much effort as I was willing to do, and it didn't come off. Because what I would do is unscrew this and put some silicone grease in here, because I think there's a little bit of an air leak at the top of the cap, but for another day. I don't want to leave you hanging on my Q1, so with a nice lobster band, I was able to finally get that finial unscrew. More ink than I expected in there. Like I said, I had rinsed this out and got ink out of the threads, but then water got into here and it actually dripped out, which made me believe that for some reason these threads didn't seal well. So I'm going to clean this up, put silicone grease on those threads, and we won't have this problem again. So now we've come to the end of the video review of this Majohn Q2 pen, and I'll say right up front, I don't recommend it unless you're particularly enamored with really small pocket pens and probably have smaller hands than I do. You won't find this pen, I think, to be very attractive, good to write with. I mean, the nib works fine, but just the size, it's not good. Yeah, it's nice that the cap comes off like it does, and yes, it does post, but it still even makes for a relatively short pen posted. That section is about as small as I can deal with. but no weight to the pen, so writing should be easy and not a chore. I may not have mentioned it, but I think the resin has a nice thickness to it, so the pen is fairly sturdy, well made, as most pens nowadays seem to be, but doesn't go on my recommended list unless you just are in love with it and need a small pen. So this leaves us with, thank you for watching. May this video find everyone safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, enjoying the new year, having fun. Bump, bump, bump. Yep. Good song. We've reached the end of this video. Notice the pen writes consistently well. So we will say bye. More videos to come in the new year.